So many people have been asking me my opinions on Michael Oliver. And my first opinion was that I think he's as poor of a referee as I've seen in relation to every other referee that unfortunately referees in the Premier League. And there's a lot of referees in that sentence. The key is all of the referees, in my opinion, in this country are pretty poor. But Michael Oliver, is there evidence or information to suggest that he has an agenda against Arsenal? Is there information or evidence to suggest that he favours Manchester City? Or is the evidence and information provided just prove that he's just a poor referee? That's what I want to divulge today. That's what I want to dissect today. That's what I want to look at moving forward. Some of this information may shock you. Some of it has blown my mind. Some of it, I've got to say, is, yeah, people have been telling me. Now, before I give any kind of opinion and get political with this, I happen to believe that he's quite a poor referee, just like many of them. That's my honest opinion. But what I thought I'd do is actually share some of the information with you about why people might feel that he favours Manchester City and why people might have the scenario that he is against Arsenal. Let's just look at the pure facts. Let's look at the information. This is not evidence to prove something. This is not information to state that he is X, Y, or Z. This is not information that proves that he is this, that, or the third. It is just purely information and facts. And that's what we go by on this channel. I'm not one of these channels or one of these guys who does stuff on YouTube to try and make out that I'm this ITK or this guy full of knowledge that you come to if you ever want evidence of stuff. I don't do that. I wanted to divulge it more. I wanted to look into it and think, what are the reasons people are pointing to the fingers at this guy? So I started to look at a poll. Over 100 Arsenal fans voted on this poll on one of the channels this week. And the three kind of scenarios or options to choose were: is Michael Oliver a poor referee? B, does he have an agenda against Arsenal? Or C, does he favour Manchester City? And as you can see in this poll, 60% believe he has an agenda against Arsenal. 30% of people believe that he is in favour of Manchester City, and 10% believe that he's just a poor referee. Now, there should really be another option there. Is it a little bit of everything? Because some of the evidence and some of the information suggests that there's probably narratives for every single one of those scenarios, right? So let's take a look at some of the actual facts and the hard evidence that is the decision making by Michael Oliver. And I'm concentrating solely on Arsenal and Manchester City games now. There is going to be reference to some other decisions that he's made or not made through other games, but ideally we want to look at the Manchester City Arsenal thing because of the weekend just gone, and because, of course, we see now a rivalry, and there's a lot of rattled fan bases out there, and particularly Arsenal and Manchester City rattled after the weekend's rivalry game, where I will say a rivalry. Now, I understand that Arsenal have to win trophies for it to be a proper rivalry like Wenger and Fergie was, but you can see definitely the players on the pitch see this as a rivalry. So let's dive in deeper into some of the stats and information. Michael Oliver has been a referee in the Premier League since 2010. He has refereed games over 57 for Arsenal and I believe just under 50 for Manchester City. So we're about even in terms of how many games he's now been experienced enough to referee Manchester City and for Arsenal. What we have seen is 7 red cards given by Michael Oliver to Arsenal players, more than any other Premier League club. In fact, I think it's only Everton that come close with around about 4 or 5. So people will think, well, he must have an agenda against Arsenal. If you go back and look at these 7 red cards that he's given, I actually don't really believe, other than the Trossard one, that we can have a huge debate about them. So for me, the 7 red cards that he's given, I don't think the Arsenal players that have committed the fouls or the offences, should I say, on the pitch can have their hands up and go, do you know what? I did nothing wrong. So let's dive into those 7 red cards. On the 5th of March 2016, it was the North London derby. It was at White Hart Lane. And if you remember, we went down to 10 men by Michael Oliver sending off Francis Coquelin. The score was 2-2, and Francis Coquelin got 2 yellow cards, one of them for being a handball offence, the other one for being a really bad late tackle on Harry Kane. I don't think there was any arguments. Arsenal fans were elated to get a last-minute equaliser, or near the end anyway, with Alexis Sanchez, as you remember. But I don't think Michael Oliver refereed the game horrendously bad. And certainly the yellow card that he got for the second yellow card was definitely 100% a bad tackle from Coquelin, who is already on a yellow card. No arguments there. Then we move on to the 21st of May 2017, the last game at the Emirates against Everton. We won the game 3-1, and Laurent Koscielny got sent off with a really late tackle, and he kind of went in two-footed. Straight red card. No real arguments as far as Arsenal were concerned at the time. That's two. The third, towards the end of the season in 2019, in fact, on the 28th of April, we went to Leicester, and at the King Power, we actually lost the game 3-1. Aubameyang scored the goal, but Mavropanos got a red card. And I don't think there was any complaints whatsoever with that one. So we're 3 red cards down already. Now we start to get towards the 2020s onwards after COVID, and things start to get a little bit more interesting. You look at the scenario on the 13th of January 2022. Granit Xhaka got a red card. This was at Anfield. We ended up drawing with 10 men 0-0. We ended up celebrating it and getting a lot of stick for celebrating it at the end there. It was actually in the Carabao Cup game. And I don't really think, again, Granit Xhaka can have any complaints. It was a karate kick, I believe, to Diogo Jota's chest. So again, we can't really sit there and say Michael Oliver has this huge agenda about giving red cards to Arsenal when 4 out of the 7 so far have been absolutely blatant. Then we go into the 10th of February, should I say, 2022. We're at Molineux. It's Wolves versus Arsenal. We hold out a 1-0 win. But Gabriel Martinelli gets 2 yellow cards in quick succession of each other. Something we haven't really seen in the game since. Now, you can say that Diogo Dalot got it. I think it was last season. Maybe it was against Liverpool, if my memory is correct. That is the only time I've ever seen that again in the whole of my over 30 years of watching football. To receive 2 yellow cards in the quick succession that he did, and let's be real, very harshly so. It was the first time I think Arsenal fans looked at Michael Oliver very differently and thought, what's going on here? Why us? Why has that happened? Where's the common sense here? Where's the first warning to say, Gabriel, you shouldn't be doing that? Because that's what's needed first, right? Unless it's an absolutely horrendous scenario where he's gone really, really late in. So if you look at those 2 incidents again, I personally don't feel like that was a red card. But some people may disagree. So that's the only one you can kind of question so far out of the 7 that we're going through so far. And there's only 2 more left. I have to say, the one I can't have no complaints about is on the 11th of November 2023. Arsenal play Burnley at the Emirates. We're winning the game 3-1. Fabio Vieira goes in really late and gets a straight red card. At the time, I remember watching it live and I said red straight away. So again, I can have no complaints there. That's 6. We then go on to 7, which of course we don't need to explain, is the Manchester City Arsenal game at the Etihad recently with Leandro Trossard getting sent off for a second yellow card and a bookable offence. Now, let me just explain the context here. As much as I believe it's stupid, as much as I believe it's letter of the law, I don't see the consistency in refereeing. Now, he has given him no choice there but to actually allow him to make a decision. So Trossard, he needs to hold an L. But what I will say is, why is Dominic Szoboszlai not getting a second yellow, a bookable offence? Why are we seeing Dalot throw the ball away? Why are we seeing people roll the ball, kick the ball, head the ball, nod the ball, and not getting yellow cards? But it's okay for all of them to do it, but it's not for Arsenal fans. So Arsenal players. So Arsenal fans are getting frustrated with this. Arsenal fans are annoyed because the only 4 times that it has been given in terms of a yellow card for kicking the ball away is Bruno Fernandes, Declan Rice, and Trossard. And 2 of our guys have been red carded for it. So people are starting to point the finger now and go, it must be an agenda against Arsenal. I would happen to look on the defence of that, taking my Arsenal cap off and say Arsenal need to start learning pretty quickly that they can't do that anymore. But actually, some people have got a right to say, well, why is it okay for Doku? Why is it okay for Dalot? Why is it okay for XYZ? But it's not okay for Declan Rice or Leandro Trossard. And that's the big argument there. And Michael Oliver, let's be real, has not been good when it comes to Arsenal decisions. 7 red cards now. People have got that in their mind. He doesn't like us. He doesn't like us. The minute he does anything against us, boom. Straight away, the fans are going to get really nasty about it. So I started to look at that and thought, well, maybe it's fair. Maybe all of those red cards are justified. Maybe Michael Oliver doesn't have an agenda against Arsenal. And then I started to turn to the evidence that suggests some of the games that he is refereeing when Manchester City are playing, it looks a little bit sus. Let's go through it. I'm going to take you back now because in 2014, on the 4th of January, Blackburn versus Manchester City. It's an FA Cup game. It's 2014, and actually, there's a red card, and it is for a Manchester City player. If anybody remembers, Boyata, he actually got sent off in that game, and Michael Oliver was the referee. That's back in 2014. But that is the only red card that has ever been given by Michael Oliver to a Manchester City player, ever. So there are decisions within games that perhaps he hasn't been able to issue a red card. Perhaps there's no need for it. Perhaps there's no tackle or offence. Perhaps there's a yellow card that he has given that could have been a red. I don't know. I haven't delved in that deep. But it seems very strange and odd, doesn't it, that through 2014 to 2024, a decade of football, he's only issued one red card to Manchester City. As I say, go back and look at the games if you wish. But then I start to look at what hasn't gone in favour of the opposition when it comes to Manchester City. What have Manchester City got away with when Michael Oliver has been the referee? Let's take you back to a game that you will all remember very well. The 26th of February 2022, Everton versus Manchester City. Rodri clearly handballs it in the area, nothing given. Who was the referee that day? Michael Oliver. Liverpool versus Manchester City. Last season, Jeremy Doku, flying kicks Alexis McAllister in the chest. Nothing happens. Who's the referee that day? Michael Oliver. Then we go to Jack Grealish in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley against Chelsea only last year. A free kick. He's in the wall. It's a clear handball in the penalty area. What happens? Nothing. No penalty given. Who's the referee that day? Michael Oliver. And then we go to the game at the Emirates last season. Kovacic on Jorginho. A clear second yellow offence. A clear red card. Should have been given. Howard, where's the excuse? He did not want to ruin a great game of football. Now, I would argue that that was not a great game of football in comparison to what we saw at the Etihad recently. The Arsenal-Manchester City game at the Etihad was 10 times better than the one we saw at the Emirates, in my opinion. But Howard Webb's justification for Michael Oliver was, I've spoken to Michael, he did not want to ruin a game of football. Now, some people will say, well, Trossard's given him no choice. He has to send him off. Well, we've already shown evidence of why you don't have to send people off in that scenario, because Szoboszlai gets away with it, Dalot gets away with it, and the evidence goes on. So Michael Oliver has to make a decision. He can either ruin the game of football by sending him off because he's got no choice and it's letter of the law, or actually he thinks, let's use common sense here and let's let the game go on because I don't want to ruin a good game of football, just like I let Kovacic off of it last year. Good game of football. And I would argue that Kovacic going in with a horrendous tackle has got more danger to it than Trossard kicking the ball up in the air. But he doesn't want to ruin a good game of football at the Emirates. He does want to ruin a good game of football at the Etihad when Arsenal are winning 2-1. That is why a lot of Arsenal fans have it out for Michael Oliver. And something else that blows my mind, something that I can't quite understand that is allowed in this game. In September 2023, referees were flown out to the United Arab Emirates. They were paid £20,000 per game. Just to give it a bit of context, referees are normally paid, I believe, just under £2,000 per game. ADNOC. Anybody heard of ADNOC? It stands for Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. It's a sponsor of the league out there. A board member for ADNOC is who? The Manchester City chairman, Khaldoon Al Mubarak. Now, ADNOC is actually state-owned. Who is the vice president of ADNOC? The owner of Manchester City, Sheikh Mansour. Now, Michael Oliver is allowed to go and referee over there, paying £20,000. Of course, he's going to say yes. In the back of your mind, you're now thinking, I've got a conflict of interest here. They're paying me 10 times more than I get for a Premier League game. I can't referee their games anymore. It's not fair. It's not looked good. It's conflict of interest. Yes, he's a Newcastle fan. But when you have your owner and your chairman of your football club that are paying you £20,000, I don't believe you should be allowed to referee Manchester City games. That's just my opinion. Some people think it's, oh my God, it's nothing. They can't be corrupt. There's no corruption. Yes, there's no evidence of corruption. Let me tell you that. But there's information that we can discuss, and that's what this is about today. And just lastly, something that blows my mind. Barcelona were charged with paying off a referee. This was around about the mid-2000s. Pep Guardiola was there at some stage. Yes, we get that, but it's nothing to do with Pep. Actually, let's look at what happened. They paid off a referee. At the time, the director of football of Barcelona is now the current director of football at Manchester City. Tiki Begiristain. Mind blown moment. This is crazy. As far as I'm concerned, this is not a show to say Man City are cheats. This is not a show to say that it is corrupt. This is a show to say Michael Oliver cannot referee Manchester City games when he is being involved with the owner, chairman, and pretty much board of Manchester City by refereeing games for them for £20,000. And that is all I'm saying on it. Listen, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Do me a favor, hit the like button, hit subscribe, make sure we get up to 30k. That's our next target, and we will see you on the next one. Take care, people. We're out of here.